second block. Okay, so the second block, it is totally devoted on the tribal policies and legislations. Okay, so first unit of this block is your historical perspective on tribal policies. So I think we have covered some of the policy measures, or what were the approaches of development in our first block. Okay, so let's say what are other approaches or other perspectives are there in this block. Okay, so as we have already discussed that the Britishers, they have entered to India for their one or two purpose, that was to trade and for their commercial purpose. Okay, and they have categorized this population on the basis of their habitations and their occupations. Okay, so when they came to India, the first kind of work they have to do was who are the people and what are their occupations. Okay, so they have categorized the population of India on the basis of uh, two parameters. One is the habitations, second is the occupations. Okay, so the habitations means uh, who are living in the mainland areas, or for example in the city areas, and who are the people who are living in the forest like areas where they have to uh, where actually they have the work with. Okay, so in those mineralist area, who are the communities or who are the people they are living. So that was also their concern. Okay, so they tried to collect the data on the on these people or of their occupation. They have tried to collect those data through different administrative officials, or some of the key persons from that communities. Yeah, like foresters or forest officials. Okay, or census, the person who are doing census, or some of the key members of those communities. Okay, so from those individuals they have tried to collect the different data regarding the Indian population. Okay, so that, and also they have tried to build that group who can give them or who can provide them those data, or who can be the person who will help them to get those data. Means whenever you are trying to do some kind of research on any area, you have to know the that community, or you have to know that area. Okay, so the person who is going to get the data, that person has to be equipped with your idea, or with your perspective what you want. Okay, so they can collect the data from that study area or your universe. Okay, so the Britishers, the first kind of thing they have to do is they try to train some groups or few peoples from the Indian society who can bring those expected data from the society. Okay, so they had provided those groups with basic facilities like education, health, and communication skills, or the communication with the different kind of localities or geographies. Okay, so they had provided those population, or they have tried to train those population who can collect the data from their expected areas. Okay, so and those From that point, Britishers had started implementing various laws, act, and policies for the development of the Indian people, or for the development of the people of Indian state. Okay, so among them, tribal communities are also there. Okay, so in the pre-independence era, as we have already discussed, the first of a kind policy they have implemented for the tribal community was uh, policies on the forest. So okay, so as in the in 1806, they have tried to control over the forest, or the that is on the they have tried to control the different products of forest. Okay, like in 1906, they have tried to reserve those teak forest, okay, of the Malabar during that period. Okay, it was just done to uh, to supply the timber to England for their war purpose. Okay, they have supplied those timbers, or the teak timbers, to the Royal Navy and other needs for during the time of war. Okay, so many forest areas they are kept as a reserved area, just to provide the, or just to meet the need of their state, means from where they have come. The kind of forest need was made from the Indian forest. So they have tried to control over the forest in India. Okay, so the reserve forest, those kind of concept was introduced in India. Okay, and another need was that they have tried to expand the railways, just to uh, uh, just to increase the connectivity with the different parts of India. It is for their own benefits, like they want to export maximum goods from India, raw materials from India. So many parts which were rich with those minerals, or which were rich with those uh, exotic goods, so they have to make the connectivity with those areas. Okay, so they have tried to expand the railway system in India to those area. So for the expansion of that railway system, they have definitely need of those ticks, or those timbers. Okay, so those area are kept reserved for the use of the Britishers only. Okay, so and those the the use of those forests was irrational, and it was not on any supervision. So within a few years, uh, the deforestation or destruction of forest was visible. Okay, so within a few years, the maximum use of forest was there in India. Okay, so mainly the large uh, part was exported to their countries, and some of the timbers that was used in the expansion of railways. Okay, so and to to collect the timbers from that local forest, some other companies were the private companies, they were employed. Okay, so and they have uh, irrationally used those forest timbers, or those timbers. So the result was that within few years, the deforestation was the major issue in those localities. Okay, so in 1862, Governor General called for a department of forest to supply the required wooden, which is needed for the sleeper coach in the railway station, railway coaches. Okay, so there is another need, which was the need of forest wood, or forest product, which was growing day by day for their state, or for the smooth ruling in India also. Okay, so and in 1864, uh, they have tried to establish the forest department with the help of some German foresters. Okay, so the and from that point, scientific forestry in India was started. Okay, so they have tried to suggest certain ways how we can do forestry in India in a scientific manner. Okay, so they have also tried to the next step of Britishers was they have tried to stop the pre movements of forest dwellers from that point. Okay, so gradually, from the first point, for their purpose, they declared certain area as the reserved area. Okay, and the second, after the consequences like the deforestation, they tried to establish the forest department, and the experts they suggested that these areas should not be disturbed. So the forest dwellers were also stopped to move in and around in those forest area. So uh, how a gradual evacuation of those forest dwellers was happening in the different phases of history, it can be seen. Okay, and uh, in 1865, the Forest Act was enacted that empowered the government to appropriate any land covered with trees. Okay, so and however, the notification uh, government could only be affected if existing rights of individual and community were not impinged upon. Okay, so in 1878, another act was made which was particularly concerning with the removing ambiguity about the absolute property right of the state. Okay, so the new act was designed to facilitate strict state control over the forest resources and was distinctly annexionalist in nature. It means gradually they have tried to conquer the forest rights. Okay, so as we discussed that in first instance they declared the reserved area, in second instance they tried to stop the movement in those forest land, and in third instance they tried to have a total control over the forest land. The state have a overall rights, or they have a total rights over the forest land of those localities. Okay, so as we have already discussed in earlier discussions that these laws or these policies, it has created or a community who are against the administration. Okay, who are against the Britishers. Okay, so in because the customary use of the forest, it was not given to them. Okay, so in very few instances they were allowed to use the forest for their customary practices. Okay, so and it was also on the mercy of the ruler. If they want to give that permission, then only they can practice that their customary practices. Okay, so it has happened in like that. They have to take the permission of the rulers to use the forest. For example, as we are saying that to practice their religious practices. Okay, so they have to take the permission from the local administration or the ruler. We want to do this kind of worships, or we want to this kind of festival in the forest area, so we may be given the permission. Okay, so that process or that system, it has created dissatisfaction among the communities. Okay, as the loss of rights and the consequent loss of control over the natural resources. Okay, so it has given rise to the it has given rise different kind of discontentment among the forest dwellers. Okay, so they have tried to revolt against the administration or against the ruler who have implemented that kind of laws. Okay, so other kind of issues which were coming or which were resulting out of those kind of policies were like we have already discussed the alienation of natural resources. Okay, or gradually they are losing their. Oh, sorry. So they have to take many kind of many labels of permissions from the rulers to do their different kind of practices. Okay, so consequently a settlement over forest was carried out in 1880. Okay, so the first forest policy was issued and declared in the year 1894 following the recommendation of Dr. Voisker, a German expert. Okay, so that policy it emphasized the basic issues like public benefits, preservation of climate and physical conditions of the country, commercial neutralization of the timber, and state revenues. Okay, so how these issues can be combinedly addressed? So the policy has tried to pave certain ideas or try to suggest something. Okay, so and it also tried to check the encroachment of forest land for the cultivation and use of forest in the interest of local populations. Okay, so uh, in some policies, they have tried to mention the tribal communities as the encroachers in the forest land. As in the due course of time, we have seen that the community property or the community ownership on the forest, it has gone to the uh, rulers sides. They have owned the those forest areas. Okay, so in uh, in the other policies or afterward policies, they have tried to mention the tribal communities are the encroachers, though they are the native dwellers of those areas or the for in those forest areas. Okay, so in this first forest policy, you will see they have tried to monitor or manage that encroachment. Okay, or how the use of forest by the different forest dwellers, okay, it can be monitored, it can be managed. Okay, so interest was like that. Okay, so and in national forest policy in 1988, which the independent data has passed, in which the Adivasi forest right was mentioned, which introduced contractors, traders, and non-tribal laborers to the forest area in a substantial manner. Okay, so the Indian Forest Act in 1927 recognized concession and privileges of the forest dwelling tribal peoples and peasants in respect of the cultivation, grazing of animals, collection of firewoods, and timber for household consumption, or of raw material for the crafts, and mining, and some of the other products like stones, and hunting, fishing, gathering, beside those other with regards to the employment services. Uh, like in the pre-colonial periods, the or you can say that in the pre-independence era, the use of forest by the forest dwellers, it was restricted. Okay, so in 1988 or in the 1927, first in 1927, they have tried to give those rights. They have tried to recognize these are the rights of forest dwellers. They should be somehow, they should be given that access. That right should be given to those individual. Like uh, as we have discussed that they have they are doing cultivations in the forest land also, like the slash and burn agriculture, कि झूम cultivation पोडू चाଷ, these are the examples. In different state it is differently termed. Okay, so they have to depend on those forest land for the cultivation also. And the community who are doing that, the pasturing community or the community who are depending on the animal husbandry for their livelihood, they have they have they are also using those forest land for their different livelihood purpose, for the gazing, you can say gazing of animals. They will definitely use those forest land. So in the pre-independence era, those kind of use were restricted. They have declared those areas as the reserved areas. Okay, so no one can enter in those areas. Okay. And this pasturing community, they will take these their domesticated animal to those areas only. Traditionally, from the very beginning, they are doing these kind of livelihood practices in their different seasons. Okay, so those kind of use was restricted by the Britishers. Okay, in 1927, they have tried to identify, yes, these are the certain kind of use, or these are the certain kind of rights they have to be given. Okay, and like for the fuel, they have to depend on the forest. They have to collect the firewoods to do their different daily. activities. Okay, and as we are also, we have already discussed that for the daily household consumption they have to depend on the forest also. Okay, to build the house, to make the different agricultural uh, small tools. Okay, or certain kind of uh, preservation and reservation of those grains, they have to make that container out of the forest products. Okay, so they have to totally depend on the forest. And for the raw materials for those artisan community, they will definitely depend on the forest. Like we have discussed that bamboo basket makers, they will definitely go to those forest land for the raw materials. Or as we have said that the collectors and the hunters, like leaf collector, fruit collector, flower collectors. Okay, or the herb collectors who are in practice of their traditional health practitioners, they will definitely depend on those forest areas. Okay, so just in late pre-independence era, you will see state has tried to recognize those needs of tribal communities. Okay, and that in 1988, uh, the forest right, Adivasi forest right was recognized. Okay, and they have introduced contractor, traders, and non-tribal laborers to the forest area in a substantial manner. Means how they have also the use, they can use the forest. uh, those policies regulations were made in 1988. Okay, so the colonial government, including the Portuguese and the Dutch, they have uh, they have entered, or they have did their colony in India, established colonies in India for that purpose, that is trade and commerce. Okay, so due to the communication constraint, it was very difficult for them to export the goods and materials. Okay, particularly, especially the forest product, the forest resources. There was no communication medium to those localities, to those regions. Okay, so one has to commute that locality by himself or herself. Okay, so in those hilly tracts or in those forest areas, they have to commute by themselves. Okay, there was no communication mode or medium in those locality, but the main goods for export to their country was located in those areas. Okay, so that was the first challenge of those colonial governments. Maybe it was the Britishers or Portuguese or the Dutch. Okay, so the first need was, which we have already discussed, that to construct railway line to make their commerce viable. Okay, and uh, uh, and to make that that is railway tracks, it is not only they're going to use the forest timbers, means they're going to use the timbers, and they have to take the lands from the nearby areas. Okay, the forest land or the lands which are in and around in those localities, they have to take those lands, that land has to be used. Okay, so they enacted land acquisition act in 1894 to have a control over both public and private land. Okay, so this envisages that acquiring of land for some public purpose by the government or government agency as authorized by law from the individual landowners after paying government fixed compensation in lieu of the loss of incurred by landowners. Okay, so they have just, state has fixed that amount compensation. Okay, how much they will going to get. The loss was not, it was not measured by the individual itself, but it was a government calculation what they will get. Okay, so the first the ruler they realized that various kind of difficulties in administration in those far flung tribal areas, respective of the acceptance of policy of isolation and segregations. Okay, so uh, as in our last class we are also discussing that policy of isolation and policy of segregation, it was meant just to keep them away from the national political uh, that is momentum which was gaining for freedom fight. Okay, so they have enacted those kind of policy of segregation and isolation for those purpose. Okay, and it has another consequences or another purpose they have given was, if we are not disturbing those individuals they will be more happier. Okay, so and as we have already discussed that nothing has resulted, just more exploitations and more deprivations. Okay, so the gap between the tribals and non-tribals, it was just expanded. Okay, so that as the policy, the Britishers, they have categorically divided those community or those area as the excluded or partially excluded areas, totally excluded areas and the partially excluded area. Okay, just to have that smooth functioning. Okay, so as and we have also discussed the Nehru's and various elements approaches towards the development of those forest dwellers. Okay, and in 1878, as we have already mentioned that the Scheduled District Act was enacted or it was prevailed. It facilitated or it says that there will be a special tribal administration. Okay, and these excluded tribal areas will be they will function, they will be out of the functioning of the ordinary laws of countries. Okay, so uh, the rest of the state they have a different law, and these excluded areas or secluded areas, okay, they have a different law. They will not be ruled under the common ordinary law which the ordinary state it was it is being ruled with those law. Okay, so uh, some of the areas they were totally excluded, wholly excluded area, and some areas which were declared as the area of modified exclusions. Okay, so in independence, you will see after the independence, it was decided to put all the tribal communities in a separate schedule of the constitutions of India. Those the scheduled and partially excluded areas were enlisted in the fifth and sixth schedule. These areas inhabited by the scheduled tribes were termed as the scheduled areas and agencies areas. Okay, as the Britishers they have started that policy of exclusion. Okay, or total exclusion or partially exclusion after independence. Okay, that that separation was also observed by the independent India. Okay, so we have termed them as the scheduled or excluded areas, as it was the British term, and they were scheduled enlisted in the fifth and sixth schedule of the constitution. Okay, and there is some exceptions are there, like some state there except of these rules and regulation, like Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura, Mizoram. Okay, they have a different administration. Okay, so you will see in a pre-independence area, not more changes has seen. Okay, on the part of the administration of those forest dwellers. Okay, so till we have continued with that geographical demarcation, we still continue to identify them as a different group of individual who need different plan and policies for the administrations. Okay, but just in the pre-independence, in the late independence era in 1927, we have tried to identify the different kind of rights of those individual, like we have tried to identify what are the link or how tribal communities or the forest dwellers they are using the forest, what are the use of forest by the tribal communities in those 1920s and 30s. We have tried to identify those kind of use. Yes, for the sustenance and for the existence of those forest dwellers, these are the activities they have to do, or these are the use they have to use their using those forest area for this kind of purpose, for gazing, for firewood, for the collection of raw materials. Okay, or for the collection of different other household activities or household consumption, they have to depend on the forest land. Okay, so that was the scenario in the pre-independence era. Okay, in post-independence era, we have already we have discussed that just after post-independence, the Nehruvian Panchashil Niti was implemented. Policy of integration it was tried to implement it. Okay, so and the success of that Panchashil Niti was not it was not large. Okay, because the consequences like forceful evacuation, development induced displacement, it was the major, those are the major issues. Okay, so it was not most accepted by the, or the addition to the development of those tribal community was not much that amount. Okay, and just after independence in 1952, you will say, you will find a modified version of previous forest policy was came. Okay, uh, which that uh, the previous policies that was less emphasizing the destruction of forest and ecological deterioration, though they were more in concerned with how the forest dwellers or the encroachers they will using the, they are using the forest, but they were not concerned on how the other users like the contractors or the private companies or other non-tribal communities they are using the forest. Okay, so their least concern on on the issues like deforestation or deterioration of the ecological system of forest. Okay, so the forest policy in 1952 encouraged the formation of the forest development committees in the different state of India to check the commercialization of the forest resources. Okay, as the Britishers or the colonizers, they have started uh, commercializing, or they have started using the forest resources in a commercial purpose. So till the just in the early independence era, that process was going on. Okay, the non-tribal communities or the private owners, private companies, they were still continuing use, or they were still exploiting that forest land in a commercial purpose, or the exploitation was more in those forest areas. Okay, so the 1952 policy for forest policy, it has tried to uh, give a check on that commercial use of forest land. It has suggested a forest committee, a forest development committee should be formed in different state of India to check that commercialization of forest resources. Okay. In the report of Committee on Forest and Tribals in India, which was formed in 1982, somehow it has given light to new kind of that is the new kind of light was thrown to the forest right of those community. Okay, so in that committee was chaired by the BK Roy Bourbon, okay, who was an anthropologist, and he has recommended certain points. Okay, so and that recommendations was accepted by the uh, ministers of the then ruling party, and it was they have recognized that there is a symbiotic relationship between the tribal social organization and the forest economy in the specific historical context of our country. Okay, so literally they have in very late. It means the committee was formed in 1982. Okay, or 1980s. So at the decade in 80s, we have recognized that there is a symbiotic relationship between the forest dwellers and the forest economy. Okay, and it was historically present, and they have also recognized that they're not just only forest dwellers, but also they have evolved a way of life which, on the other hand, on the one hand, is woven around the forest ecology and forest resources. On the other, ensure the forest is protected against the against the that is destruction by man or nature. Okay, so in 80s we have recognized that the committee's recommendation, which were accepted by the rulers or the then minister of home affairs, they have accepted that there is a symbiotic relationship between the forest dwellers and the and the forest economy or the forest resources. Okay, so they have tried to state that, and these relationship is not new. Okay, so these are present from the very beginning, and there is a history of that kind of relationship is present there. And one hand, they are using that forest resources in a sustainable manner, and they're trying to protect that forest land by the man or by the nature whenever it is getting destructed by the man or the nature. Okay, so as we have already discussed that the amount of exploitation done by the non-tribals is much more higher than the amount of exploitation done by the forest dwellers. Okay, so they will give the time for healing to the forest, as we have mentioned that slash and burn cultivations. Okay, or that podu or zoom cultivations. Okay, so they will give that particular time period for the healing process to the forest land. They will not exploit the lands. Okay, so one thing has to be remembered that whenever a non-tribal community or non-tribal personnel, they are entering to the forest, uh, as and when at a particular point of time they will just see the forest product as a commercial product. Okay, but the forest dwellers, they have a different approach. Okay, they know when to collect the timber, when to collect the leaves, when to collect the flowers, when to collect the fruits. Okay, so they have a different approach to use the uh, mm, those uh, those forest product. Okay, they will not just use those forest product in a irrational manners. They will definitely, they're more concerned about the future use of those forest land, as their generation is using that forest product, the next generation or their offspring are also going to use those forest land. Okay, because that is their habitation, and the next generation is also going to use from that, use the forest land, use the resources in that habitation only. Okay, so definitely they will protect those natural resources or natural vegetation for the use of their next generations. Okay, so there is a difference between use by the non-tribals of forest and use of forest by the tribal communities. Okay, so rightly that committee, it has pointed out that they will try to protect that forest land or the forest resources. Okay, by the men and by the nature also. Okay, they have their own belief system and knowledge system, from which locality or from which region how much or what amount of resources can be collected. Okay, so they have their own traditional knowledge. Okay, and from the man, how they protect, they e- generally they don't give permission to the other persons or the other members of their locality to use their forest land. Okay, so it restrict the maximum use of that particular patch. Okay, like if a particular village is using the forest, the nearby forest, then definitely they're going to protest if other community person they are going to use that patch. Okay, so it means they're minimizing the use of those forest product, or they are minimizing the exploitation on those forest resources. Okay, so that kind of relationship was identified in the early 80s. Okay, after independence. Okay, so and you will see our 5-year plans, they have also tried to contribute uh, mm, uh, for the development of the tribal communities. Okay, so just after independence, the 5-year plan they were initiated, and definitely they have that plan. They have certain target group they have mentioned. Okay, one among those target group is your tribal communities and scheduled communities. Okay, scheduled tribes and scheduled communities. Okay, and it has tried to identify that these community, they can bring development by themselves. Okay, it means making their own future or self development by getting rid of the exploitation by the non tribals. Okay, so in first 5-year plan, which was implemented, or the period of first 5-year plan was 1951 to 56. Okay, it has tried to introduce certain schemes on education and welfare of the tribal communities. Okay, uh, mm, as the other community, other targeted group, they are getting different kind of benefits from the 5-year plans. Okay, so in first 5-year plan, certain uh, schemes were introduced for the tribal educations and welfare of the tribal communities. Okay, and in second 5-year plan, which was in the year 1956 and continues till 61. Okay, so that exclusion policy, it was more specified. Okay, so 43 special multi-purpose tribal blocks were established in the scheduled area, that was called as SMPT. Okay, and the program of each block were given an additional thrust by the siphoning a special allocation of 15 lakhs to each blocks in each 5 year, in each lakhs for the 5 years. It means for the every SMPTs, okay, in a particular 5 year they will get 15 lakhs. Okay, the Devar Commission, which was formed in 1960, okay, uh, it appointed to study the whole gamut of tribal development. Okay, and recommended recommendation have it has that has gone a very long away. The commissions recommended on planning and development should be more specific for solving the problems of the tribal communities. The specific problems are like the land alienation, indebtedness, promotion of education, protecting tribal interest in the forest, and sectoral development. Okay, the Devar Commission also recommended establishment of tribal culture research and training institutes in the state for conducting training for official and non-official development functionaries and workers taking part in the research studies. Okay, so not only it has tried to that commission, it has tried to identify the what are the special issues or the special uh, mm, issues in the tribal areas. Rather, it has also uh, tried to suggest different modalities how to overcome those issues. It means the state should try to establish the tribal cultural resource centers and training institute. Will train the individual uh, who are the part of those tribal development policies, or who are the administrator in those areas. Okay, and in third 5-year plan, more tribal development blocks were established. Okay, so the 415 tribal development blocks were set up, and in fifth 5-year plan, uh, uh, three categories like area of tribal concentration, dispersed tribal, and primitive tribal groups were given attention. Okay, so from blocks to we have come towards the uh, population concentration. Okay, like in a particular block, maybe tribals and non-tribals, okay, maybe they are there, or the characteristics of that blocks are similar. So we have tried to uh, club all those blocks, all those blocks who have a similar kind of characteristic. So we have tried to identify or we have tried to give them a separate area of tribal concentration, area of tribal concentration, or dispersed tribals. Dispersed tribals means you must have an idea that the concentration of tribal populations sometimes it is not in a mm, mm, particular geographical location. Okay, or you will say the density of that population you may not find in a particular village area. Okay, the density of those tribal population in that particular area, it may be very thin. Okay, so that their habitation, it can be of group of hamlets. Okay, in a particular area, hilly area, one hamlet, two hamlet, three hamlet, or combination of hamlet will constitute a particular village. Okay, so they are dispersely habituated. Okay, that groups, they will dispersely inhabiting in different localities, and those dispersed group or dispersed area, combining those area, it will consider as a one unit. Okay, so for example, where the density of that tribal population is more, we are terming it as a area of concentration. Where the density of those tribal populations are thin, but they are found in that geographical location in more, so we can term them as a dispersed location. Okay, and another concentration or another area which was marked was uh, the primitive groups, pittiges. Okay, uh, now they are called as the PVTGs, particularly vulnerable tribal groups, and pittiges stands for the primitive tribal groups. Okay, so uh, from the tribal groups, these pittiges, they are far behind. Okay, so in socially, economically, or you can say demographically, okay, or culturally. Okay, so they have to be given a separate attention. In fifth 5-year plan, we have identified this kind of zonal divisions, or this kind of zones of tribal populations. Okay, so uh, we have tried to identify the large tribal concentration in fifth 5-year plans. Okay, and like we have in the locations or in the areas where the more than 50% of population has tribe, we have tried to term them as the tribal development blocks, or we have tried to pick them in those development areas, tribal development blocks. Okay, in sixth 5-year plan, you will see, you can notice that certain pockets of tribal concentration outside the tribal subplans area were still left out of the tribal plan strategy. Okay, so in a sixth 5-year plan, those left out areas were identified. Okay, so those pockets of village which are having the minimum of 10,000 tribal population, okay, or that is of 50% of the total uh, mm, population, they should be carved for the intensive integrated development and modified area development approach. Okay, which is termed as the MEDA, modified area development approach, under the tribal subplans. Okay, so mm, in as we identify the larger area in sixth 5-year plan, we have also try to identify the area where the population of tribal community is 50%, or minimum of 10,000 population in the blocks where tribal populations are there, so they can also come under that MADA. Okay, modified area development approach. In seventh 5-year plan, you will see uh, the objective of seventh 5-year plan was to be a mix of area come family development. It means simultaneously they are giving equal importance to the smaller institutional development, like the family. Okay, so like how those smaller family, the smaller institutions, how they can get maximum benefits. Okay, or the minimum facility they should get, like you have to concern with the house, you have to concern with the different other facilities like water, or you have to concern with the different other facilities like communications. Okay, how the as the area is getting special attention, the family should also get that attention. Okay, if that benefits is properly distributed among the among the different family members or the different individual or not, that should be evaluated. Okay, and after seventh 5 year plan, you can notice that a massive change has come to India. That is LPG. Okay, so economic forces has entered, changing economic forces. It has entered in India in 1990s. Okay, so after 1990s, many economic reform it has done in it has came in India. Okay, so definitely, after sixth 5 year plan and seventh 5 year plan, you can notice that voluntary organizations or NGOs, they have evolved like anything. The unprecedented growth of these volunteering organizations in 70s were there because as we have pointed the needs of state, like we have noticed that there are many issues which were pertaining to these tribal communities. Okay, these tribal community are one of the downtrodden communities of India. Okay, there are also scheduled communities are there. There are also other minority communities are there who may have also that similar kind of problems. Okay, and because in this post-independent era, India was planning for a particular it has set a particular developmental goal. Okay, so to assist or to supplement that goal, many uh, organization develop voluntary development organization they have came into existence. Okay, as we have also noticed that the incapability, or you can say the mm, developmental approaches, it has created many dissatisfaction among the different categories of India. Okay, so those dissatisfied group, they have also tried to establish different non-governmental organization or voluntary community-based organization, volunteering organization, many groups, many voluntary groups they have established to suggest an alternative plan or to supplement in the planning process. Okay, so you will see many groups they have come into existence in a process. Okay, and in us we are seeing that in late 80s or in early 90s, LPG as it has entered. So prior to that, international body they have a role, they had played a different role in the Indian scenario. In a economic scenario they have played a various role. So the flow of international fund or international funding, it has given a bed for creation of these voluntary organizations. Okay, so in 1990s you will see various kind of developmental approaches were implemented for the tribal community. Among those approaches was one is the SSG approach, means microfinance approach. Okay, so tribal self-help group was introduced in 1990s. That was in eighth 5 year plan, sorry. So it has increased the growth and infrastructure of the concerned concerned tribals. The skilled tribals also started migrating to the other parts of the country, okay, where they were working in the public sectors agencies and government as well. Okay, so more involvement of international agencies was also found in the tribal development policies. Okay, as we have also seen in our last discussion that ILO, World Bank, okay, or UN, they have tried to uh, implement more policies for the tribal communities in India. Okay, so the major objectives and strategies of 8th 5-year plan were to make the tribal sub-plan strategies more result oriented and purposeful. Okay, adequate emphasis was laid on the development of or development on the livelihood, like implementation of development of irrigation, horticulture, diversification, and improvement in the quality of educations of tribals. Special schemes were formulated during this period for the educational development, the development of scheduled tribes, particularly in the field of education and and reducing the dropout rate among the scheduled tribes student at primary levels. Okay, so in 8th 5-year plan, we are not just we have tried to diversify the uh, different tribal policies and programs. Okay, so we have tried to address from the grassroots levels. Okay, like we are supplementing their traditional livelihood practice through development of irrigation. Okay, so we have added to their traditional knowledge of cultivation, like we have introduced horticulture. Okay, and we have suggested them for the variation in their traditional agricultural practices, like more diversification in the crops. Okay, so from this period we have tried to introduce the commercial crops in those areas. Okay, as we have seen that those SSGs, uh, they have tried to include the commercial crops for their purpose. Okay, so more commercial crops they have been included in their traditional agricultural systems. Okay, and the root cause of the that is dropouts in schools, that was addressed in that during that plan periods. Okay, and in ninth plan or ninth 5-year plan, it was the aim was to empower the tribal communities by creating and enabling socio-economically conducive environment for them to exercise their rights freely. Okay, and enjoy their privileges and lead a life of self-confidence and dignity at par with the other non-tribal communities. Okay, so to ensure that that rights. Okay, so there is a major shift which was visualized in this period. uh, that was for example, we have tried to address the vital components like social empowerment, economic empowerment. Okay, and we have tried to give them social justice to we have we have tried to give them not only to the tribal communities but also to the other minorities communities. Okay, and a special ministry was formed in this plan period, in this ninth plan period, to address these kind of issues or to give them that kind of right. Okay, that was the Ministry of Tribal Affairs in uh, in that ninth 5-year plans. So in 12th 5-year plans, 10th 5-year plans, you will see we are more focused on resolving the issues or the problems like uh, which are time bound. Okay, or we tried to resolve the issues of tribal community uh, within a particular period time, it means their issues should be easily resolved, or within a few time frame, that issue should be resolved. Okay, in that 5-year plan, 10th 5-year plan, National Schedule Tribe Finance and Development Corporation was set up in 2001. Uh, it was estimated that more than 14 lakhs of tribal communities, they had got benefit. Okay, and in 11th 5-year plan, a special plan. It was not a special plan for the tribal communities. We still continue the older 5-year plans, means the development of tribal population through an area development approach. uh, and uh, in this plan period, 11th plan period, we had tried to identify the nomadic and denotified tribal community as a disadvantaged group. As in our prior policies or in our 5-year plans, all the provisions were enjoyed by the scheduled community, scheduled tribal communities, scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. Okay, we have totally ignored the nomadic and denotified tribal communities, though they have been denotified from the schedule, but still their situation is same as the tribal communities. And where uh, mm, we fail to identify, capture the nomadic community, as they don't have the specific area where they are the permanent settlement. Okay, so it is very difficult to cast those group or to provide the benefits, as we have already that mentioned that the policies for the tribal development, it was based on the localities or on the base of the tribal consultation. These nomadic groups, they don't have those kind of permanent settlement, so definitely they will be out of that developmental approach, area developmental approach. Okay, so in 11th plan also, the Department of Elementary Education and they have tried to provide special provision and incentive for the tribal students, which includes provisions of free textbooks, uniforms, abolition of tuition fees. Okay, and there are many more facilities they have added on. Okay, and special focus is also accorded to the tribal students under District Primary Education Program, that is DPEP, Kasturba Balika Vidyalaya for the tribal girl students, uh, and midday meal program, that was all for the all when I count the students, irrespective of the uh, different categories. Okay, and Navodaya Vidyalaya, National Talent Search Scheme, and many more programs like post matric scholarship to the all tribal students. Okay, and Sarva Sikkha Abhijan SSA, it has encouraged for the tribal language in all schools in tribal areas. They have tried to open the adult literacy centers, spreading inclusive educations. Okay, and in regards to the higher education, uh, this plan has recommended setting of new colleges in the tribal areas and establishment of central universities in those tribal concentrated areas. Okay, where they can get the maximum opportunities to uh, enroll in those universities or to have that facilities in those areas. Okay, and the plan also encouraged tribal language through textbooks and appointment of tribal teachers who are well versed with the tribal language, and establishment of boys and girls hostel in the different educational institutions. You will see in different educational institutions, special hostel for the tribal girls and boys were established. Okay, and in those tribal pockets area, the recruitment of the different teachers and other job holders or the administrator, it was preference was given to those mm, people who are from that land. Okay, in the case of teachers, the teachers who are more well versed with the local language or the tribal language, they are selected. Okay, so they can easily minimize that language barrier. Okay, or the dropouts can be minimized. Yeah. So language is another cause of the large dropout in the tribal pockets. Okay, so and it also look after the socio-cultural discriminations faced by the disadvantaged group of scheduled tribes at different levels. In this plan period, 11 plan period, you have seen that mm, uh, in the healthcare practices, you will see because of the language barrier, uh, they faced many kind of problems or many kind of issues they faced. Okay, so they are unable to access those facilities. So in those area and along with that kind of issues, they have their own practices. Okay, so the facility of uh, uh, facility of ANM, auxiliary nursing midwifery. Okay, so that was provided in this plan period. So that training institutions were established in those area, and they can get those person in those area to have a better facilities. Okay, so in for the development of tribal community, national tribal policy was drafted. Okay, so in 2006 it was drafted, and you will see it has recommended, uh, or it has tried to include the uh, PESA's provisions. Okay, and also the Nehruvian Panchashil Niti. Okay, so national tribal tribal policy in 2006, it has tried to inculcate both the things of PESA and uh, both the principle from PESA and Nehruvian Panchashil Niti. Okay, so national tribal policy recognize that the majority of the scheduled tribes still live in the below poverty line. Okay, and half the poor literacy rate, suffer from the malnutrition and diseases, and are vulnerable to the displacement. Okay, so and it also acknowledges that scheduled tribes in general are repositories of indigenous knowledge. Presently it is now the basic the more buzz term is IKS, Indian knowledge indigenous knowledge system. Okay, so they are the repositories of indigenous knowledge and wisdom. Okay, so national policy also aims at addressing each of these problems in a concrete way. Okay, so it lists out measures to preserve and promote tribal cultural heritage. Okay, so mainly uh, as years has passed, there is there is no significant change in the case of tribal life. Okay, so it was identified in the national tribal policies. Okay, and another thing was identified, they are the repository of their indigenous knowledge system, and they have their own cultural system which should be preserved and promoted. Okay, so it has tried to increase the literacy rate of the tribal, which is still low in comparison to the other non-tribal community. Okay, and it has tried to it is suggesting to provide them financial assistance, and it has tried to emphasize on the vocational education and mother tongue in the school curriculum. As you have seen that NEP, it has also tried to implement that mother tongue based education. Okay, and the forest dwelling tribal people have possessed a kind of knowledge about their surroundings pertaining to the medical system, agriculture, ethno-veterinary, environmental conservation, and so on, which the national tribal policy seeks to preserve and promote. Okay, already we have discussed that as how they can easily predict the natural calamities, like you have seen the instances like during the tsunami. Okay, uh, they could able to they could able to see the natural disaster. Okay, what is coming, they could predict that thing. So they had shifted to the hilly areas or higher areas, so they have their own natural instinct, you can say, or natural knowledge system, which is which should be preserved and it should be promoted. Okay, so this tribal policy, it has tried to mm, identify those knowledge system, it has tried to promote that knowledge system. Okay, and if you see the uh, in course of the time, you have seen that in healthcare practices, the uh, uh, in the you have seen ayus, a separate department, it has been established. Okay, and in that you have seen ayurveda and siddha. Okay, so those are the some traditional practices which were practiced by these tribal communities. They have been included. Okay, so somehow we are trying to include their knowledge system, and we're trying to promote their knowledge system. Okay, so as you have already seen that during the time of COVID, how we had promoted that particular Ayurvedic knowledge system. Okay, and another fact, it has been seen, it has tried to identify that since independence, the displacement, it was a major issue. Like the displacement that was caused by the construction of dam, industries, and mining. Okay, so there is no difference between in the pre-independence era exploitation on the natural resources of tribal communities, and in the post-independence era, where we are still exploiting the natural resources of those tribal communities. Okay, so the displacement that were majorly caused by the building of those dams, industries, and mining, it has largely affected the tribal population in terms of the cultural, economic, health, and other kinds of vulnerabilities. Okay, uh, culture, if they don't have that their own natural setting, they cannot practice. Okay, you cannot imagine any of the festival what now they are practicing without their natural setting, natural habitations. Okay, so definitely if we are snatching those forest land, they're affected with that health hazardous. They don't have that natural resources where they can collect the herbs for their traditional healing practices. Okay, or already we have discussed that if you are evacuating from their natural habitation, they are uh, empty with their livelihood practices. Okay, like the food forest collectors, forest product collectors. Okay, from where they will get those products and sell it out in the market. Okay, so they are in a empty hand. Okay, so those kind of that national policy for tribals, therefore it uh, try to minimize that displacement, and uh, whatever it can assist to those displaced people, it try to cover all those things. It means uh, the correct amount of that is you can say correct amount or correct value should be given of their land from where they have been displaced. Compensation, the correct amount of compensation, or at least uh, a locality which is similar to their locality, there they should be rehabilitated with all the facilities. Okay, so the exact state may not provide, but similar kind to certain extent where they are going to be resettled. All those facilities should be there from their native of their native places. Okay, so that kind of provision, that kind of concern, national tribal policy is going to give. It has given. Okay, and like in shifting or slash burning cultivation, uh, it has state has deprived the tribals of the traditional practices, as a result of which their subsistence economy which was affected. Okay, so tribal policy, to handle the problem of septic cultivation, seeks to rationalize the land tenure system. Okay, so as we have seen that because they didn't have the private ownership over the lands, so they cannot be called as the permanent settlers or the permanent agriculturalists. They don't have those kind of private ownership of land. Okay, and that exclusion was you can say it was structural. Okay, so the possession of land in India was with the few groups. Okay, so definitely they didn't get that amount of land patches where they can cultivate. Okay, so this policy tries to resolve all those issues. Okay, and it tries to rationalize the land tenuring system. Okay, so we have certain kind of initiative we have taken, but the result of that is not satisfactory. Okay, so it has also the tribal policy, it has also seeks to develop the primitive tribal groups. Okay, particularly the primitive tribal groups who are most vulnerable among the tribal population. Okay, so and they are located in the fringes of the mainstream population and have contact less contact with the mainstream populations. Okay, it seeks to develop them economically and to preserve their ecosystem, lifestyle, and traditional skill of both tribal communities and the PTGs, particularly primitive tribal groups. Okay, and another issue is that which has been identified in national tribal policy, that is the land alienation and the land transfer. You have seen that uh, because of that two issue, uh, the amount which were owned by the tribal community, that amount has uh, got shrunken because of that land transfer system and land alienations. Okay, so as we have seen that because of those faulty forest policy, we have drove them away from the forest land. Okay, because of those land transfer system, we didn't regulated those land transfer system, So maximum land was captured or it was encroached by the non-tribal communities. Okay, so they're left behind with no rights on land. Okay, so encroachment on the tribal lands were there. So these tribal policies, it tried to stop those kind of issues. Okay, like a faulty land transfer system and land alienations. Okay, so it seeks to formulate state anti-alienation and laws so as to scrutinize the loopholes of various state laws and bring them in a conformity with the PESA Act. Okay, where the local bodies are given more importance. Okay, it also seeks to amend the Indian Registration Act in order to identify the transferee where whether or not it is a member of scheduled tribes. Okay, so that rules and regulation of transfer, it should be uh, it should be updated or it should be revised. Okay, it so it can minimize the tribal land alienation and some of the litigations which is lied with those land transfer system. Okay, so as we have already you can have the knowledge that in the HDI index, human development index. Okay, so this tribal community, they have a poor status or they have a poor representation. Definitely, as we have already mentioned that this tribal policy, it has identified they have a low literacy rate, they have a low health status, means still they are prone to different kind of diseases. Okay, as the different kind of diseases, and they're not so immune that they can protect themselves from the different other diseases. Okay, so and this poor health is due to the inaccessibility of the health facilities. For example, as we have already said that these areas are geographically inaccessible. Very few communication facilities you will find. Okay, and sometimes they don't access those healthcare facilities because they have a other options are there, multiplicity of health practices are there. You will find multiple health practices in those areas. Okay, so because of those things, they are they don't prefer the modern healthcare practices. Okay, and they have food insecurity is another problem. Okay, and poor sanitation and safe drinking water, still they depend on those ponds and streams or river for their drinking water source. Okay, and as we have noticed that because of this ecological imbalances and uh, environmental pollution, we cannot depend on those open water sources for drinking purpose. Okay, so those things and poor sanitary sanitation, for example the pollutions, it has traveled to those inaccessible areas also. Because of those changing forces, the pollution has reached to those areas also, like pesticides or the single use plastics or chemicals or many kind of things, it has traveled to those inaccessible areas. So the traditional surrounding of those tribal community, it has got more affected. The sanitation system, it has got more affected. Okay, so and the mm, and another part is that the communication, lack of communication, physical communication and language communication. Okay, so that is creating another problem in the healthcare practices. Okay, so these tribal policies, it aims to provide safe drinking water, good hygiene and sanitation among the scheduled tribes. Okay, So this should be provide with those basic facilities in those areas. Okay. And national tribal policy, it seeks to develop the livelihood standard of the tribal community with different kind of livelihood schemes. For example, you have seen that in recent past, many ITIs, industrial training institutes, they are being established in those tribal concentrated areas or in those tribal pockets. Okay, encouraging, they are also encouraging the traditional arts and crafts and agro forest based activities. Okay, so with the help of various schemes, livelihood schemes, you have seen that uh, they are also encouraging those art and crafts, dokra for examples, or as we have seen there, those artisan community, they are the supplier to the other local communities. It may be the tribal communities, or it may be the other non-tribal communities. They are the supplier to those communities. So in uh, diversity, we have diversified their products. Okay, no longer they are confined to the similar kind of products. It means the containers, okay, basket containers or bamboo basket containers itself. The product has been diversified. Now they are promoted to make the decorative items for the non-tribals, urban uh, peoples. Okay, so they're encouraged to do other kind of art, which will be more marketized, whose demands will be more. Okay, so we have diversified their product. Okay, so the amount they were selling in their local markets, definitely that demands has minimized or it has gone down. Okay, so to promote their business or to promote their sellings production, we have tried to diversify their products. Okay, so the dokra makers, now they are suggested to do certain kind of to produce certain kind of ornaments, to produce certain kind of you can say utensils, decorative items, for the keeping in view the different localities. Okay, so we are diversifying their products, and it has tried to give the uh, mm, encourage the it had tried to increase the value of minor forest product, MPFs. Okay, so state is trying to fix that product's price. Like we have seen certain kind of oil seeds, they are collected from the forest. Flowers, mohua flowers, we have seen the or the leaves which is used for the bidi makings. Okay, the kendu leaves. Okay, so the price of those products, it is being decided by the state and the those corporation which is built by the tribal communities. Okay, and the products like honey, lax, okay, or various kind of leaf plates. Okay, so all these things are being produced by, which are collected by the tribal communities. Their price and their marketization is decided by the state. Also state is taking care of all those things. Okay, so to get to generate the income through banks, NST, FTC, TriFed, these were also established. Okay, and another problem which was identified in that policy was the migration, tribal migration. It is becoming a common problem in the specific tribals areas where like we have seen that dropout, it is increasing because of health facilities. Okay, or because of health hazards, they are migrating to other areas. Okay, and to avail, there are some push and pull factors are there. Both push and pull factors are equally working in those areas. You have seen that in Odisha, southern part of Odisha, those districts are tagged as the migration district. Okay, so the nearby areas or the state, uh, they are providing the job opportunities, and push factor is that they didn't have any kind of alternative job opportunities in their locality. So push factor is the unavailability of job opportunities or the livelihood sources, and pull factor is the availability of alternate livelihood sources in the nearby areas. So they are migrating in those areas. Okay, so the national tribal policy aims to bring the equality among the male and female by providing the female various legal aids by or by the policy frameworks. Okay, so in every sections of society, tribals, maybe tribals or non-tribals community, you have seen that there is a gap between two genders. Okay, male and female. So the development of male members or the main members in a particular society, definitely it is higher, okay, than the female member. So in tribal, unlike other community, in tribal communities also you will find that kind of scenario. Okay, so they are also this this policy, it has also aimed that specific group, women of tribal community. So different policies it was being formulated to enhance their status. For example, the SSGs, self-help group, it is adding to the status of the tribal communities, tribal female female members. Okay, so in our second unit, you will see it has provided what are the constitutional provisions and acts for the tribal community. As we have already discussed that there are many policies are there which are solely constituted or implemented for the tribal community. So constitution, it has also provided different provisions or safeguard for the tribal communities as well as the other minority communities like scheduled caste and other minorities communities. Okay, the Constitution of India guarantees the development of scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. Okay, and it was not confined to the somehow it is confined to the economic domain, you can say, but there are other various kind of domains it has been taken care in the constitution itself. Okay, so like uh, in the domain like social, economic, political and gender, legal and human right context, you will see there are many provisions they have been provided by the constitution. In the social domain you will find the expectation of tribal communities from constitution. What are those? In social connection you will find the first thing we need is the um, mm, there should be no zero discrimination among the different individual. So article 15.1, okay, it prohibits the discrimination on the grounds of religion, race, caste, sex, birth of place, etc. However, there is an exception in article 15.4, 15.4, 16 and 16.4 for the empowerment of the scheduled tribes. Okay, so somehow in those contexts we discriminate them from the rest of the populations. Okay, and the constitution has also provided different acts for the safeguard of the dignified life, like article 19. You have article 19, it provides protection of certain rights regarding the freedom of speech, freedom of assemble, freedom or to form the different association. That given that those kind of facilities or those kind of rights. Okay, and article 25 ensured freedom of conscience and free profession, practice, and propagation of the religion, entry to temples of Hindu religion, institutions of public characters. Okay, and Article 35 provides to give effect to the provision relating to the fundamental rights. Okay, and Article 38 it makes provision for the state to secure a social order for the promotion of welfare of the people. In the educational context, you will find Article 14A, it makes a space for the empowerment of the state to make special provision for the advancement of a socially and educationally backward class of citizen, or maybe it belong to a SC and STs. Uh, State is enabled to reserve seat for the SCs and STs in the educational institution, including technical, engineering, and medical colleges, and in the scientific and specialized course. So, this Article 15 it provides that reservation facilities. Okay, and Article 16.4 in terms of backward class, it used the it means backward class, it will include all those scheduled tribes, scheduled caste, and other backward classes, denotified communities also. Okay, and nomadic and semi nomadic communities also. So in Article 16 you will find that backward class concept. Okay, and in Article 16 it provides there should be equality of opportunity in matters of public employment, but there is a special provision for the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. And in Article 46, it says that states' responsibility is there to promote the uh, uh, to promote to promote, and it should provide special care for the education and economic interest of the weaker section. Okay, particularly the scheduled tribes and the scheduled caste. Okay, and another social measures or social facilities you will get in constitution is that prohibition of untouchability. Okay, so Article 17 it it has provided that facility. You cannot discriminate an individual in the context of untouchability. Okay, so uh, so in that it enforcement of any kind of the act enforced any kind of disability raising out of untouchability is considered to be an offense punishable in accordance with the law. Okay, so and there are many amendments which has been done in this context, and it has been sometimes in some cases it has been considered as the criminal offenses. Okay, so and another thing or another rights which has been given to the Indian citizen, that is prohibition of human trafficking and forced labor. As we have already discussed that uh, mm, these community members, they you will find larger sections of these community members as the bonded laborers. Okay, so mm, Article 23 it prohibits human trafficking, bundle laborers, and other similar form of forced labor. Okay, and it provides that any contravention in this provision shall be an offense and punishable in accordance with the law. Okay, so and next protection you have find that provision for the children, that is Article 24 it is providing that uh, no children or no child below the age of 14 should be employed to the work in any factory, mines, or be engaged in any other hazardous employment. So as we have noticed that tribal communities children or child, sometimes they are engaged in the many kind of hazardous sites. Okay, so these hazardous employments of children is strictly prohibited on Article 24. Okay, and this Article 29, it also protects minorities' interest. Okay, no citizen shall be uh, denied uh, denied admission into any institutional educational institution mentioned by the state, or receiving aid out of the state fund on grounds of only of religion, race, caste, language, or any of them. Okay, so it is trying to minimize, or it is protecting you from the uh, mm, different kind of differences. Okay, so in economic domain, you will find that Article 275, Article 335. Okay, so they are protecting the economic interest of the tribal communities also, as they are protecting the economic rights of other community members. In administrative domain, you will find uh, Article 163 provides there should be a council of minister with the chief minister at the head to aid the advice governor in exercise and office exercise of his functions. Okay, so Article 164, Article 338, Article 339, 340, they all provide certain kind of reservations. Okay, or formation of a particular administration, or commissions, just to protect the development or the rights of the tribal communities. Okay, so administrative protection or administrative empowerment is also provided by the constitutions of India. Okay, and there are certain special provisions for the state like Nagaland, Assam, Manipur. Okay, they have been differently empowered by the constitutions. Okay, and as we have already discussed that, uh, in political domain, you will find certain state, they are enjoying different political power in regard to the tribal community. Like we have said that Meghalaya, Tripura, Mizoram. Okay, so they have their autonomous power, which is given by the constitutions of India. Okay, and next concept which was given is that positive discrimination, as we have already mentioned in our last class, that these positive discrimination, there are three kind of positive discrimination you will find. Okay, so one is your reservation in the educational institutions, and second is reservation of services and post in the governments. Okay, and third is reservation of seats in the legislature. Okay, so these are the three kinds of positive discrimination you will find. Why this reservation it has given? The argument is that uh, the ST in educational the reservations of STs in educational institution is made on the ground that due to the isolation and deprivation, they were denied access to the education for centuries. Okay, like we have already discussed that policy of isolation and policy of that is deprivations. Okay, because of that thing, they are deprived of this educational accessibility. So they should be given, for centuries they are deprived of this kind of rights. Okay, so they should be given that reservation in those educational institutions. Okay, and we have also seen that different state having the population of tribal community, the percentage they are having in the population, that percentage they are giving in their educational institutions as a reservation. Okay, like in our state in Odisha, you will get 22.5% reservation for the scheduled tribe, and 16.25% for the scheduled caste. Okay, so the percentage of populations define how much you are getting to, how much you are going to get the reservation. Okay, so but sometimes these reservation has didn't any it has not changed anything. Still they are vacant. Those seats are vacant. Okay, so the earmarked reserved seats are there, but those seats are sometimes those seats are lying vacant. Okay, so you can conclude that from those vacant seats, we have failed to empower those tribal communities to get that reservation also. Okay, so those are the some scenarios. So for the reservation seats of seat, you will find Article 330 provide reservation seat for the SC/ST in Lok Sabha. Article 332 it will provides the seats reserved for the SC/STs in the legislative assemblies of every state except Assam, Nagaland, Meghalaya. Okay, and 332 reservation for the autonomous districts in the legislative assembly of the state like Assam. Okay, there are many articles which is spelling the reservation in political scenario. Okay, and in Article 243D, it provides the reservation of seats SC/STs in the every panchayats. Okay, so from the ground level, political institutions or the administrative institutions, we are providing, the constitution is providing reservation facilities. We are positively discriminating those community. Okay, they will get the different benefits from the rest of the community. Okay, so the rationale which are given for the special provision of the SC/ST is that uh, mm, to minimize the discrimination and the deprivation. Okay, and those positive, the rationale was clearly spelled out by the B.R. Ambedkar's study or his studies or his writings. You will find will be more sufficient. Okay, so and there are also other measures are there which is protecting the uh, mm, women of the tribal communities. Like you have heard the programs like IRDP or TRISM, NREP, RLEGP, DOCRA. These are the certain policies and programs which are specially meant for the tribal women, for the empowerment and upliftment of those tribal communities. Okay, and so in our next class, now last class, we will try to cover the other provisions like Prevention of Atrocity Act or Forest Right Act or and PESA. There are many policies and acts which has been given by the Constitution to protect protect their interest and their development. Okay, so today we are ending here, and in our next class we'll discuss the rest of the thing. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.